Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of Change is Hard, y'all. We have today our good friend and our co-host, Erin. She's here to talk about a lot of amazing things that have gone on in her life and all the different changes that she's made over the years. So get ready. It's a ride. All right, as I said in the intro, we're going to be talking to Erin today as an interviewee, not just as a co-host.
Yay!
And Erin is going to talk about different things that have gone on in her life. She's lived maybe 3 lifetimes in her short life. So, Erin, why don't you say hello?
Hello.
Shai's here with us too.
Hello.
So, Erin's one of her big changes and pivots that she's made in her life was to leave behind the church life of her youth. So, I think what I'd like to do is to in the very beginning, have Erin describe to us what that was all about, what church she went to, what the tenets or dogma of her church was.
Sure. Attempting to keep myself focused, I wrote some notes about that specific question. And what I came up with, and I put in quotes, because hopefully it'll communicate to people that, they're like, oh yeah, I went to church when I was a kid. No, that's not what we're saying. What I wrote was, nothing casual about evangelical Christians. It is all-consuming. So your whole life and context and social group and the structure of your day is all centered around the church. So all my friends were church people. How we dressed was dictated by, our church community, how we, what music we listened to, what books we read, what radio station you listened to, what shows you could and could not watch. I mean, we're talking, this was an echo chamber to match any echo chamber. This was your whole life. So if the church doors were open, we were there. It was church on Sunday, sometimes Sunday night, Wednesday night, small group or Bible study. Then there might be separate women's prayer group and men's prayer group, or a breakfast, or youth group on Friday night, and whatever church event was happening on Saturday. And it was just constant, nonstop.
Immersion.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the belief systems of your particular church?
So my context would be, some people might hear Baptist and think, particular things, but our context is ultra-conservative, so believing that the Bible is a literal book, a literal text, everything in it was literal, and that's your context. So the earth was literally created in 7 days by a literal God. How it's written down was how it happened. You live your whole life by the Bible and what it says, and so because it says things like men are supposed to be the head of the household and the head of the church, that's how everything's structured. So the husband makes important decisions, the wife is supposed to submit to whatever those decisions are. Her role is simply to be supportive. Her role is to have children, stay home with the children. Dad goes to work and earns the money. That's how family life is structured. And then in the church context, it means women do not hold any kind of leadership role or decision-making role. So if someone's needed in the nursery, that's women. If the church has to be clean, that's women. if meals need to be cooked, that's women. But if it's to be a deacon, meaning you kind of have this like sub-pastor role, that's men. Taking the offering, men. Up at the pulpit, men. Leading worship, men. Those were very specific gender roles. And honestly, I never saw a whole lot of questioning about it, even though I kind of wondered about it, but it was never something that could be openly discussed.
It's just how it was.
Right.
And for all of those people doing those roles, what kind of relationship were they encouraged to have with the God figure from the Bible?
Since I kind of, I don't have any memories of not being in church, it's kind of, they start out with, when you're a kid, all these, I don't know if you know what flannelgrams are, but they're like these little things made out of fleece, and they put them up on a board, and this is the story about Adam and Eve.
For stories, yeah.
Yeah, this is a story about Abraham and Sarah, and this is a story about Jonah being swallowed by a whale, and like this is how they communicate Bible stories to children. So in those senses, it's all like God has specific relationships with specific people, and he's always telling them, you know, what his will is and what they should and shouldn't be doing with their life, and like that's a very clear line of communication with these people. And then in today's context, it's supposed to be if you have a relationship with God and you're a Christian, you've asked for forgiveness, and you have this like ongoing communication with God, you're praying every day, you're reading your Bible every day, you're going to church regularly, and like these are the outward showings that you have personal, you know, relationship with God.
But did you expect God to tell you something the way, like for instance, the way that Jonah was instructed? Okay, you got to go do this. Were you waiting for that to happen to you, or did it?
I think I always carried a sense of guilt that it wasn't happening, so I must not be doing something right. So I had a lot of angst, especially as a teenager, thinking, you know, feeling compelled towards people and helping people, but didn't know, you know, what that would look like in the context of like, what's God's calling on my life? You hear that a lot in those groups of people, is like, God has a specific calling for your life and you need to find out what it is. And I'm like, inner thoughts, Erin, for freaking out. Like, I don't know what it is. How do I figure it out? No one's telling me. What do I do? And like, so then I figure out, you know, any way I could. Well, okay. And you just kind of stumble along. Like, yeah, I think God's calling me to do this. And you just start going down this path. But like, I didn't fucking know. Did not know. I thought I knew, but I didn't know.
And that's stress on top of the stress that naturally comes with being an adolescent or teenager.
Sure.
So,
yeah. A teenage girl who already was super weird.
How are you weird, Erin?
Anything that's associated with being a girl, just remove that from the equation whatsoever. Didn't have long hair, hated dresses and skirts, never wore makeup, still don't. Had no interest in boys unless it was to play football or baseball. I was all about it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was everything a girl should not be. That's what I was.
And how did that go over with your family?
Oh, I think they did the best they could given the context we were a part of. I think they got a lot of behind-the-scenes flack that I didn't know about until I was older. But things that people would say to my parents behind the scenes of like what they were doing wrong with me for me to be turning out this way. So a lot of, and me not knowing any of that, just being like, why isn't this good enough? Like, this is just what I want to wear. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. What's wrong with that? It's clean.
Right.
I mean, yeah. And my parents being like, no, go back. We're going to church. Go back and put a dress on. Go back and put a skirt on. Go back and whatever. So just a lot of misunderstanding and hurt feelings, just because it was so not in my nature to want to do any of those things. And yet it was an expectation to be a certain way as a girl. Sit a certain way, talk a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way.
Wow.
And I didn't do any of it.
That didn't feel good, I bet.
No.
To be told to be someone you weren't.
No.
And meanwhile, was your sister fitting the mold?
Oh, man. She could not start wearing makeup soon enough. Could not start dating soon enough. Could not be out there experiencing life soon enough. We both really rubbed up against the conservative Christian environment, but for very different reasons.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. If a psychologist could get involved and figure that out, like the nature-nurture aspect of that, fascinating. We could not have been more different, and we both really kind of pushed against the constraints in different ways. So, yeah.
So you've told Shai and me that you went all through school at a Christian school.
Yeah.
And then you went to a Christian college.
Yeah. Glutton for punishment over here.
But I went to a college that was affiliated with the Baptist Association, Southern Baptist, but that didn't mean anything to me. I did whatever the heck I wanted. There were no rules as far as I was concerned. But you had a lot of rules at this university, right? And you followed them.
Yeah, looking back, I don't know why, but I think because I still firmly believed, well, this is the right thing, so I got to do the right thing. And so, like, backing up to high school, went to this very, very small, very conservative Baptist high school, where literally it's like you have Bible class, you have chapel, you have Bible class, and then even like sitting in English class, you have the English teacher who looks like straight out of the 1950s. I mean, so just get that image in your head. And then she's up there telling you how a biblical, godly wife should be and look, and that means the man makes the decisions, and you just support it, and everybody is better off that way. Also, don't get involved in an interracial marriage, because marriage is difficult enough. I mean, this is English class.
Also, this is what a verb
English.
is, and this is what a noun is.
Yeah, let's talk about Beowulf now, after I just said something super racist. I remember this to this day because I'm 16 years old sitting in English class, and this is what the woman's saying, and even steeped in the context, I know it's wrong.
Right.
Even
Right.
then, I knew it was wrong.
Right.
Thinking to myself, I should be screaming right now, but saying nothing. Completely silent, just sitting there, wondering if anyone else was going to say anything. So that's the high school context. There were some good things, like playing basketball, loved it, like just put all my energy and pent up everything into the game. But then it didn't even occur to me that I could do something outside of the bounds of what family and the school was saying. So I only applied to three colleges. They were all Christian, very conservative. And that's where I ended up going, is this very conservative Baptist university in Ohio in the middle of nowhere. And same structure. Even though you're 18 to 21-year-olds, so legally adults, you had to sign this commitment. You're not going to drink, you're not going to have sex, you're going to be gender segregated dorms. You had to attend chapel every single day, and they scanned your student ID card as you're going into the door so they could track that you're attending chapel every day. you had to fill out a form every week that said I went to Sunday morning service at this particular church, I went to Sunday evening service, and I participated in some kind of ministry throughout the week. So whether it was the soup kitchen or you go witness to people, meaning proselytize, try and convert people off the street. Horrifying to me. But that's considered you're considered top tier Christian if you're willing to go out and try and convert people on the street. That's
Sure.
the pinnacle.
But that reminds me, when you were talking about being a top tier Christian,
Yeah.
you had told us that you were taught that you were born full of sin.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the way to say it?
Yep. If you go, and Shai's laughing because she knows all about Genesis so the very first book of the Bible, as the Bible was put together by all men. They decided what was divinely inspired, so what God actually told people to put down on paper, and now that's what's part of this Bible that we hold in our hands today, which is kind of absurd if you sit down and think about it. But back to Genesis, there's a story about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and when God gave very specific instructions about this very specific tree that they weren't allowed to eat from, and they disobeyed and ate from it anyways. And of course, Eve is blamed for eating it first.
Sure.
Therefore, that's when sin nature entered the world, and everyone who ever came from Adam and Eve, which they say is all of us, then we all have sin nature from birth. So you're from birth, you're already damned. You're up shit's creek, and so if you, in that context, if you don't hear about Jesus and you don't hear about God's forgiveness and you don't accept it and you don't recognize your need for being saved from this ultimate depravity that you are, then hell is your punishment.
Your childhood and young adulthood through college sounds extremely stressful and scary.
Yeah.
Extremely. I mean,
Yeah.
did it feel that way at the time?
It felt sad and confusing to me, but I'm not sure that I ever would have articulated it as being scary. I just always felt confused and inadequate. So
I don't know. Hell's kind of scary to me. I would have been scared.
Yeah.
I was always.
I guess because I considered myself, quote unquote, saved. I had prayed the prayer and I was in the group and I was, so.
Doing everything. You were doing all the things.
Yeah, I escaped that. So that's not awaiting me.
Okay. It would have been awaiting me, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I no longer believe that, but I just think how many people still believe it, and 8 billion people on the planet, and a very, very small fraction identify as Christian. So you're saying all of those other people who have ever lived and who will ever live on planet Earth, they don't believe in this very specific God and way to forgiveness. I was like, nope.
Well, when were you like, nope?
Very recently.
Oh, okay.
So I'm 42. I grew up in this. I mean, literally, I was still attending church up until 2019-ish. But had started. I mean, the cracks had started much, much longer than that. But it took me until 6 years ago until I walked away completely. And I cannot participate in this anymore.
Okay. You went to a pretty progressive grad school, went through a program, and tell us about how that influenced you, or whether or not it did.
Well, so I went from 2005, I leave this ultra-conservative Baptist university, and go directly into the U.S. Army. So you talk about a wake-up call or a culture shift or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I was just slapped in the face with, like, I do not know how to function as a human being in this planet. Like, just thrown in over my head completely.
Did they not make you go to chapel and scan your badge every day? Was that not part of it?
There was a very rigid structure, but that wasn't part of it.
Oh, but that wasn't.
No,
Okay.
that's not part of it. Very similar sexism and homophobia and all of those layers in there, and control and rigidity, but not the chapel thing. No, it was the swearing every other word and freaking yourself into blackouts.
Yeah.
That kind of world.
And all kinds of sexual shenanigans, I would imagine, that you weren't used to.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Completely unprepared. Yeah. So I spend, years in the Army acclimating before I ever get out and go to grad school. So it was kind of maybe I should talk about that first.
Yeah, I think I skipped ahead talking about your grad school experience. And I want our listeners to know, just because for one reason it's really interesting, tell us what you did in the Army.
I flew Black Hawk helicopters.
Whoa. When did you start flying Black Hawk? How old were you?
21.
Wow.
21.
And where did you, were you
flying? The Army is nuts, y'all. They are nuts.
I know. Where did you pilot these helicopters?
Flight school was in Alabama, which is its own particular situation. And then as soon as we graduated from flight school, I was sent to my first unit, and I'm going to say Fort Liberty, because fuck Pete Hegseth and all he stands for. You can look that up later for anyone that's confused by that. So Fort Liberty, I'm there for like a matter of weeks to get like supposedly pre-deployment prepared, and then I met my unit over in Afghanistan.
Oh, I'm sure that was plenty of time to be prepared.
Here's a PowerPoint. Afghanistan is a tribal country in between the Middle East and Asia. Okay, get on the plane. We're gonna first you have to be a human pincushion, and we're gonna shoot you up with all these things, including anthrax. And then now you can get on the plane. Okay, bye.
So you're flying a Black Hawk helicopter in a combat zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was that?
I think anybody that pretends that they're not scared shitless by that situation needs to be evaluated immediately. I found it, every time I got in the cockpit, the level of anxiety, maybe that wasn't normal for everyone, but very high for me. And the context is like you're in this highly sophisticated aircraft coming from an American environment, and now you're flying in, so I was in the southern part of Afghanistan, so like Helmand, Kandahar province most heavily. It's very rugged rural territory. So we're talking mountains, desert, very little arable land that they could use to farm with. And farming, like hand tilling rows and using a donkey and handmade mud bricks, which they're building their family compounds and walls with. And I felt like I had been transported back in time, and yet I'm in this cockpit. And like my brain is just like short circuiting. Where am I and what are we doing? Almost every time I was like, what are we doing? But you can't say that out loud.
No.
No.
Well, I'd love to spend several hours talking about your experiences in Afghanistan if you had wanted to, but to move along, you were deployed twice, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And tell us about your thoughts about the mission, after you finish your first deployment or during either one. Did you have changing thoughts?
Well, the context that I joined up in the first place is so just after 9/11. So I literally went to college the day after 9/11. That's when I got
Wow.
there. My family is very, very heavily military, very, very proud of that military service. So my dad, my uncles, my grandparents, aunts, cousins, I mean, just very, very heavy concentration of veterans and military. And so, plus a lot of conservatives. So those two things are like very intertwined along with the religious thing. So layers, but I lost track of the word.
Well, just your viewpoint about being in the military and the mission, our country's mission there, and how you felt about it.
We're in this like very close post 9/11 mentality of everyone's, rah rah America, and we're all pulling together against this common enemy, and terrorism is so evil, and we're the good guys. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker, especially when they tagged onto it that we're going to Afghanistan because the Taliban is so bad and mistreating women so badly. Like, and that's the hook where they totally had me. I'm like, yes, yep, horrible.
I'm for that.
I can't believe they treat women that way. I'm all in. And I still believed that for months during the first deployment, and until I remember thinking on a couple of missions, just seeing like mistreatment of people, and obviously, death is happening on a regular basis, and it seems like things are getting worse and not better, and just the questions started just like a battering ram. And they really never stopped after that. That was the beginning, I would say, of the end of a very long journey of changing after that, but that's when the questions became like I couldn't silence them anymore after that.
So you had to go through a whole other deployment with all those questions, with all that conflict.
Yeah, because anyone who enlists, they have a certain time frame on their contract, and if you don't complete that amount of time, you could be court-martialed, you could be jailed. They don't take that lightly.
So during your deployments, did you find yourself considering that the sense, hey, we're the good guys, hey, we're here to help, maybe that's not actually how things are playing out? Do you wonder if that same set of questions started to bleed into evangelicalism, which very much comes, we're the good guys, we're here to help, like we're here to help you in a really ultimate way. You're welcome. You're welcome on the whole hell thing. Yeah. But it doesn't always play out in a good and helpful way. It sounds like the military was almost like sort of a living metaphor for that whole for that whole narrative of we're the good guys because we said so, and we're informing you that we're the good guys, and if it doesn't feel good to you, that's probably something wrong with you.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
Like I said, they're kind of inextricable in how I grew up. It's like the military, the church, America, republicanism. It's like they now come as a package deal. Like you can't separate them out. There's no nuance allowed. And so to extract like a portion of that not only is very painful but very difficult to navigate. So it's like the moral injury of having to participate in certain things in the Army was what started some of the cracks. But then also thinking like that some of the things don't jive with what we're saying we believe as Christians. So like more cracks. but like I'm still being asked to participate in the army, and I'm still being asked to be part of the church, and we're doing, frankly, a lot of harm to people, and like I can't shut off my brain and can't let go of the feeling like I'm hurting. I am actively hurting people, and I'm participating in the hurting of people, even if I'm not pulling the trigger, even if I'm not making the law. I'm hurting people, and I can't keep doing it.
So much conflict. All the belief systems you were taught.
Yeah, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of insomnia, a lot of self-hatred, a lot of
Gosh. Well, after you finished your second deployment, you still had some time you spent in the Army, and you had a family tragedy that I think you've indicated had kind of was part of some of your change.
Yeah. So I got home from my second deployment, and they sent me for training, which is like basically a break. We all considered it a break because we're like, we're not on deployment, so it's all good. And then I got, it was towards the tail end of the training, I got a call from my mom, and I already had orders in hand to go to my next place, which was Egypt, the Sinai. And she called and said, Erin, I think you're going to have to come home because we got bad news about Dad. And I said, what do you mean bad news? Like, I have orders. Like, my stuff was shipped. Like, I'm 1 foot out the door. And she said, well, they said that he has a brain tumor. And at that point, like, I think my brain stopped fully functioning. But I just didn't fully sink in. But I got on the phone with the guy in charge of my unit at the time and said, like, here's the situation. What do I need to provide to be able to go home and in this context? So the Army, after a lot of long story phone calls, paperwork, I got a compassionate reassignment to go back to my hometown and help take care of my dad because he was only given 6 months. So it's like I hadn't processed anything from the deployments, so I'm not sleeping a lot. I'm not handling life in general very well. And then I'm watching my dad go through this horrendous disease, and this guy, like, fixed anything on any home we ever lived in, was a master carpenter. I mean, worked with his hands, like, as a living. And he lost the ability to feed himself, lost the ability to speak, lost the ability to walk. And the physical decline in the very short, and he only ended up living 9 weeks from the time he was diagnosed till he passed. And at the very end, he was so emaciated at the end that I picked him up. And I'm 115 pounds myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the church's response to that, some people, it was like, I'm just going to bring you a meal and I'm going to sit with you in this horror show. And like those people, I will appreciate till my dying day. But some people, and their need to say the most absurd things you have ever heard, like, was another battering ram to my belief system of like, this is somehow part of the plan. We don't understand the ways that God works, but it's part of the plan. And I'm raging on the inside. Fuck your goddamn plan. Are you serious right now? Never speak to me again. Like, the rage was just not at a good level.
Right.
So the ways that religious people sometimes try and whatever they're trying to, like, good intention, maybe, but like, just stop talking, just stop saying anything at all, please.
Yeah.
Well, it's a form of trying to dictate your experience.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like when something's that intense, that's not going to take. You can't just re-narrativize that for somebody. That's absurd is the word that you used, and that's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's never a good feeling when someone tries to tell you what you're feeling instead of, how are you feeling, Erin?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't seem like there was a... Everyone was trying to make this into a situation like, this is really where your faith, the rubber meets the road, kind of. And I was like, no, this is where we just survive. We just get through each day.
Right.
That's what this is.
And make Dad as comfortable as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
While my mom's world is absolutely crumbling in front of her eyes.
Exactly.
We just survive. That's what we do. So I didn't go to church for years after that.
How did your mom feel about you not going to church after that experience, with that being the reason of, when my family had this to go through, we were treated sometimes well and sometimes poorly, and I'm not showing up for this. With that being the reason, what did your mom think?
I'm not sure we had a clear conversation that was my reasoning. I just didn't go. And at the time, I was living with her because we were taking care of my dad. And I literally, no time to find another place to live. So we're living in the same house, but very few conversations in the time. Again, because she's still trying to work, I'm still expected to show up, to work, even after all of this. So I don't know. I think we were both kind of in shock or just operating automatically. So she really didn't bring it up, because I think she knew it would not be productive. It would not be...
She may not have had the bandwidth to deal with that.
Yeah, maybe not.
At the same time.
Yeah. Well, just the survival mode of it all maybe gave you a little latitude to, just get through every day as you had to.
Yeah.
Because eventually it became an issue for her that you weren't going to church, but not then.
Right. Yeah. I kind of attribute... So I didn't go the whole time I'm on that compassionate reassignment. So I'm in Scranton teaching in an ROTC program. And then I decided, I had such a nightmare boss in that context. Just a real creep. I won't go down that rabbit trail, but I was like, I'm done. I'm done. Like, if I wasn't done before, I'm definitely done now.
Me being in the service, being on.
Yeah. So I had 1 year left that I had to finish on my contract, but I found out I could do it in the reserves or in the National Guard. So that's when I decided I'm gonna go to grad school. I'm gonna use my GI Bill for something instead of it just disappearing. And I'll do the reserves, and then I won't have to do this every day. I'm not going to be in this uniform every day. I'll have some of my life back.
How did you've told us that you went to, as I just said earlier, you went to a liberal school to get your graduate degree. How did you decide to do that? How did that happen?
I knew after what I'd seen in Afghanistan, and I feel like I already... I just had, I guess conservatives would call it a bleeding heart. I just felt like there's so many people in the world that need so much help, and we have it so good. We have no idea. So I just thought, I want to use the rest of my life to help people. Instead of going to a different country with a gun, I want to go and help in some way. So I started looking at programs that do, not international nonprofit type work. And I'd actually applied to a different university, Temple, in Philadelphia. And when I met with one of the faculty members and they talked to me for 10 minutes, they're like, no, this is not what you want. You want to go to Clark University in the International Development Program. Write that down. Clark University.
Cool.
And I was like, what? I already got accepted here. I was here to see the school and find an apartment. Are you serious?
That was great.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was flabbergasted, but I listened to them. I'm like, well, you know what you're talking about. I mean, you're a professor. So I did. I applied there, got accepted, and.
Okay, tell us about that experience and how that impacted your life.
Yeah. So this particular program was made up of, they had a portion American students who had either been like in the Peace Corps or, you know, some kind of political science or that kind of a background. And then the rest of the program was all international students who were interested in learning more about working with different development agencies. So we're talking all over the world, people from Chad and Nigeria and Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, you name it, people from all over the world. So here we are, we're these like privileged American students, and me in particular stand for American imperialism, like occupation, oppression, American military. That's their experience of any American who's been in their country, valid. But in my context, I'm coming out of we're the good guys. And I left that specifically because I understand we're not always doing the right thing, but this was like a whole different ballgame. This was like, not only are you not the good guys, you're the bad guys. Newsflash! Wake up, you're the bad guys. The bad guys. It was just like a level of anger directed at me that I was unprepared for, because I just didn't know. There was so much I didn't know about the world and about how things are in other countries and how America operates in other countries. And I think that was purposeful. Like, America doesn't want you to know how we operate in other countries purposefully, so that we can continue operating that way. So I had a lot to learn, and I first had to like work through the defensive part of it and lay down my identity as military and kind of get in that like I'm going to listen and learn mode and stop trying to defend basically what's indefensible. And like that was a process.
I think that's amazing that you did that, coming from the background you had.
Well, anyone who's willing, and not everyone's willing, not everyone's able to absorb information contrary to the "you're great" premise. It's rare, more rare than I wish it were. But it's only because it's hard. I mean, it's hard to hear, and then if it actually gets into your ears and into your brain, it's really hard to let it, like for instance, into your heart. To go, you know, I have been harmful. It wasn't my intention, often, but that's the case. And you know, I can say that from personal experience. I have in my life been unkind to animals. I have been unkind to children. I have been unkind to peers who were vulnerable. All of that's all true. And I can kind of armor myself against that information and pretend that that's not how that went, and I didn't yell at that person, and kind of split the narrative into something that is true versus something that I live with. But I find it a lot more interesting and real to say, oh yeah, that is part of this story. That's part of this being that I call me. And is there some way to minimize that?
The only thing I've been able to conclusion to come to has been that it's not a threat to learn these things. Like, if you view everything as a threat, of course you're going to become defensive and put that armor up because someone is attacking you. But in actuality, I'm finding out no one was attacking me. They were just, like, who else should they direct it to? Who else should they be mad at? How else could they express their rage at what had been done to them, their families, their countries? So, like, instead of viewing it as a threat, viewing it from someone else's perspective and just being able to learn what those experiences were like for them, I think has allowed, in a lot of different contexts since, for me to be able to learn rather than defend.
Because how I present in the world isn't just a function of what I want. It's a function of how it impacts other people, too. We're a complicated system. But it can be a tough thing. It can be a tough thing to encounter and actually integrate and go, okay, I'm a person. I'm dealing with a whole bunch of components, a whole bunch of feelings, a whole bunch of needs, a whole bunch of basically indoctrination that I'm walking around with all this stuff. How do you go about getting as familiar as you can and empowering as much as you can those parts that that move toward health, move toward healing, move toward mutuality? And how do I acknowledge and learn about and kind of calm down those parts that might come in hot? Like, I'm here to fix all this. Or I'm better than you, or I'm more powerful than you, or, whatever it is on the day. It's a pretty deeply personal moment to take that hit.
Yeah, it feels very uncomfortable. Some people would probably describe it as unnatural to... I think of it as uncomfortable to not defend yourself.
Right.
Just, how do you maintain your calm and openness? Right. It's a difficult task.
But you did it, Erin. You stayed in that program and you learned new information and new ways to think. And I think that's one of the things we want to talk about on this podcast is how some people are able to do that, like Erin, and some people are not able to do that. And we'll get into that more as time goes on.
I think I've at least already started a little bit to enumerate how I think that it's really tough. Unnatural is kind of an interesting word for you to bring up.
But I agree with that.
It's a tough thing to, I'm just going to go ahead and quote my dad. Why not?
Yeah.
He says, every time you go to get a degree of freedom in what you do, to be less programmed, less indoctrinated, less automatic, every time it costs an identity.
Oh boy.
And you just said, you had to lay down an identity to be able to do, and every time. And it's hard.
Yeah, because you feel like you're extracting parts of yourself.
Yeah.
And like, why would you do that willingly?
Yeah.
Because that hurts.
Yeah.
Well, you risked your life in Afghanistan 2 different times. And when you started, you thought you were doing a good, positive, helpful thing.
Yeah.
And so to take away from how you had felt about it, at least at the beginning, that must have been something.
Yeah, because there's not a welcome audience for that. It's like we went from the Vietnam era where there was this very strong anti-war movement and one view of the military, and then we did a pendulum swing, and post 9/11, everything is thank you for your service, thank you for your service, thank you for your service, and it's almost like it just shuts down any and all ability for people in the service to say, I'm not sure it was actually the right thing, guys.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we should have even been there. And like, there's space for people to say that now, but we're talking 20 years on. And only some people still feel enabled to say that after a great deal of pain.
Yeah.
On so many levels.
Exactly.
For so many people. But yeah, I actually was asked to write an essay. This is a Vietnam vet who I used to work with, and he has this like blog that he asks anti-war vets to write about certain issues, and he asked a bunch of us to write how it made us feel when people said thank you for your service, and like wildly different responses, which is just fascinating. But even that encapsulates, Americans just want it to be simple.
Right.
We're the good guys. We did the right thing.
Right.
Thank you for your service. Conversation over.
Right. No nuance.
No.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, you have to understand what we're doing and what's being done in your name with your money. Get educated, please.
So if you go to a military environment and say, I don't know if that was the right thing to do, they're going to be mad. And if you go to, hi, this is Shai, I'm a liberal peacenik gal. If you come hang out with our crowd and say, I was in the military, I'm not sure if it was the right thing to do, you might get your head bitten off because, well, what the hell?
You should have known better.
We should have, well, of course it was,
Right. We could have told you that.
Who can you approach with this transition of exploring the nuance of what you have been through? Who can walk through that valley with you without, yelling at you about it being the walk that you're on?
Yeah. I actually had a couple of roommates in grad school who were so great at helping me navigate that, or just giving me the space to navigate that.
Right. And the grace.
And saying, like, not the trope, the trope of thank you for your service, but like, we understand that what you did was difficult, and like, you're processing difficult things, and like, we see that. We're here for you. Like,
thank
I don't know how they had the maturity to do that, but they did.
That's great.
And I also had one professor, her name is Cynthia Enloe, and everyone should read her books, but she studies militarism and what it does to societies. Never once, and this lady has done this for like 80 years now, never once condemned me, and always encouraged me to ask more questions. Getting better, Erin, more questions. Who benefits from this? Why? What are they trying to accomplish? And always asking more questions. Unbelievable ability to see where people are at and get them to get where they need to be without bludgeoning them. Just really smart.
So glad these are the people that thank goodness for that professor at Temple, right?
Yeah.
I see where you need to go.
Crazy.
Get over there.
You can't make this up. What?
It's almost as if you're giving us a play-by-play of how someone moves away.
Deprograms?
Moves away from some things and moves toward other things. You just, all the steps. I mean, you had the good luck with the professor at Temple, but then you did it. You could have dropped out when people were yelling at you or arguing with you, but you did it. And then you finished grad school. I want to move along. Yeah. You finished grad school, and when did you start working for the federal government?
2017.
Okay.
So there was like a 3-year gap. The first year I couldn't seem to get hired. I applied to a bunch of nonprofits, DC, New York, Boston, couldn't seem to get hired anywhere. And then I got a job offer at UMass Boston to work in this institute that studied, and this is literally the name, the Joyner Institute for the Study of War and Social Consequences.
Hello.
Started by a
Hello.
Vietnam vet who wanted to help other returning veterans transition from,
Wow.
I just participated in this god-awful thing. Now I'm going to school trying to assemble some kind of normal life. Like,
Mhm.
how do I do that? And it
Awesome.
turned into this entity that brought together veterans and refugees at writing workshops for them all to process everything that happened to them as a
Mhm.
result of war. I'm like, what? This place exists?
Uh-huh.
That's incredible.
That's,
So,
yeah.
really cool story. That place has since basically been shut down because they just want to do the rah-rah. Veterans, thanks
I
for
know.
your service.
Yeah, don't dig
we're not
deep
going to
and-
ask
yeah.
about social consequences of war anymore.
No.
We're not gonna do that.
We're done with that.
Right,
yeah.
Gosh.
So after that, we moved back to Pennsylvania, which is where my husband and I are both from, and I got a job working for the VA hospital.
Okay, so you started working at the VA hospital and for a few years there, and then you moved to Charleston, where you now live,
Yep.
and you started working for another government agency.
Yes.
Federal government
Because
agency.
again, I had tricked myself into thinking, well, I'm not in uniform anymore. My life is still my own. I can live my values and not have to participate in things that are not
Right.
according to my values. And then
And
we just had another election, and that was impossible.
So what did you do right after the election, Erin, with your job?
I gave my notice because I knew what was coming and no one else believed me. It's weird. It's like I could have told you, like before the last 2 months of stuff, it's like I could have named, he's going to do this, and then he's going to do this, and then he's going to do this. And I literally said to people, he is going to have a loyalty test for federal employees. They looked at me like I had 4 eyes. Okay.
For what it's worth, I believed you.
Thanks.
I
Thanks, Shai.
believed you.
Yeah, I'm like, this is who this guy is. He is
Yeah.
going to unleash an authoritarianism that none of us are ready for. And I don't know how else to convince you, but I cannot participate.
Right,
I have to leave.
right.
And I work with such good people at the Army Corps of Engineers, but
Worked.
worked.
Right. You're no longer working there.
And,
Okay, so Erin, you left the evangelical church because you couldn't buy into the tenets. You started having a completely different feeling about the military and what our country has done militarily, and then you left the federal government. So talk to us about your feelings about how those things all go together and how they're the same or different.
yeah. There's a lot of parallels, at least in my experience. And some people will tell you, oh, my years in the military were the best of my life. Like, I traveled the world and I got benefits and I was able to buy a house after. And I had nothing bad to say about it. And then there'd be people like me who say, I lost pieces of me I'll never get back.
Yeah.
So it just really depends. But for me, it was that very hierarchical power structure. Like, this is who is in charge. This is who gets to make the decisions. Stop asking questions. It's not your place. This is how we've always done it. Literally being told, shut your brain off. Stop asking questions. Just do it. And that mentality permeates, in my opinion, both the military, American culture, and as a result, the conservative church in America. This is the way we do it. Get in line. And the things that results from the abuse that results from that, the hate crimes that result from that, the continued oppression of minority groups that results from that, it's like extracting pieces of my soul little by little by little to the point that I couldn't take it. And so I had to get out. I had to get out of the army, get out of the church, get out of federal government, because I'm like, I will not be me if I don't get out. So here I am.
You wanted to be true to yourself.
Trying to be me and not understanding how it feels like the people I used to admire the most, and like, I believe in patriotism, and I believe in loving your neighbor, and I believe in being a person of integrity, have chosen the opposite of all of those things and are elevating the absolute worst of humanity to be in positions of power in our country. And it just feels like they've taken a baseball bat to my head, like broken my skull open and told me that I'm the crazy one. And like just over and over and over that I'm the one in the wrong for saying these things and for not participating in the church and for not supporting Trump and for not. And it like every single day I just feel so enraged and so betrayed by the very people who told me integrity matters, kindness matters, self-sacrifice and loving people matters. And like, it's all out the window. It's just, I can't recover from it. I don't understand how they can't see it and how they can't act and change and do something different.
Because of these changes in you and the changes in your belief systems, it sounds like it's very hurtful and painful with people in your life that were in your life, and some of them are still in your life. That sounds.
Yeah, I guess not for this all to be depressing. Would be to say there's things I've had to let go of, and people I've had to let go of, and relationships I've had to be okay with being at a neutral stance, just a truce stance at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But also, when you choose change and the kind that results in just a dramatically different life than you were living before and a different viewpoint, what I've gained to me has been more valuable than what I've lost. And like, I'm able to be me in a way that I never could before. I was constantly oppressing myself, like shoving myself in a box and shoving down all my thoughts and all my feelings and the way that I operated. And I don't do that anymore. I'm able to think what I think and say what I think and operate in the world in a way that feels like it has integrity. And it's opened just unbelievable doors. I mean, I never would have met you two. I mean, if you had told my family when I was 15 that I was going to become a progressive activist,
Out on the streets.
they would have had a heart attack, or they would have said, someone needs to call the police.
Call the minister.
I didn't say boo to anyone. I have been told my whole life that I'm too quiet. Too quiet.
Really?
Not anymore.
Too quiet. And the way I met you two
Was not being
was
quiet.
being at a very loud protest in downtown Charleston. So yeah, life looks very, very different now than it did before, but I would not go back. I would never go back.
Oh, Erin rolls in on her motorcycle to the site of the protest with her handmade sign and is ready to throw down. Yeah.
And continued to.
It's
Yeah.
a whole different vibe.
The police never arrested her, so.
Well, yeah, because I'm white.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
They should have.
Exactly.
But
So for me, I'm thrilled that you went through these changes and showed up on the streets of Charleston doing protests because it meant I get to know you. Yay for me.
thank you.
But that said, I'm really sorry it hurt so much along the way.
I know.
To even if you self-eject, leaving a tribe is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, I mean, it's not just identity there, right? Like it is livelihood and meaning and whatever your North Star is and whatever your sense of who you are walking through the world is, to the degree that it is affected by the storyline that you carry. I mean, stepping outside of the story is a huge deal, and you might get to have an interior experience that is more direct, that is less narrativized, that is realer, that goes straight to the core of things.
Yeah.
And that could be really valuable. And I'm glad that it seems like that's your experience, but I'm sorry it costs so much.
Thank you.
I am too, but I'm just so impressed that you were able to do it in the way you did it, because you're still working on keeping up a really good, as firm as possible relationship as you can with some family members who have been a little taken aback by all your changes. I mean, you didn't just walk away. You're doing the hard work of trying to keep some kind of relationship.
Yeah, that's another aspect of change is when you change, I mean, the other people in your life are forced to deal with that change in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so hopefully I can encourage people by saying the change is worth it. Do the change, please, by all means. But keep the good and be okay shedding the bad.
Right.
And when I say that, like, there were a lot of bad things that I wish had not been a part of my upbringing. But there were also some really good things. Like, I mean, my parents worked their hands to the bone to make sure my sister and I had food on the table, clothes on our backs, a roof over our head, and, like, some nice things. You know what I mean? Like, they worked their asses off. And, like, I admire the hell out of that. I mean, my mom, on her hands and knees, scrubbed the floors and bathrooms and kitchens of rich people for 30 plus years to put me through school. And, so, like, the love that people have for their kids, I don't question that. Like, some of the decisions they're making to not allow their kids to be who they are is very, very disturbing and troubling to me, but, like, I don't doubt for a second that they love them. So, like, keep that, recognize that, try and maintain the relationship if you can, but don't not do the change. Like, you have to do what you need to do. So
Exactly. As hard as this has been,
Yeah.
the process, you would never go back. I mean, that was a little easier because you had rules to follow and everyone was telling you what to think and what to feel.
very black and white.
Yeah.
Very simplistic. But in effect, that saying, ignorance is bliss,
Mm-hmm.
I think is very true for a lot of people.
Oh, yes.
They don't want to know what's happening in the
Exactly.
world. Do not tell me any of that. I don't want to.
My mother used to say, I don't know why in the Greenville newspaper they keep talking about things over there. Why don't they just talk about over there?
Yeah.
We're like, where's over there, Mom?
Yes.
Probably for her, California would be. She's not even talking about,
No.
Afghanistan.
Right. Yeah. But, I mean, turn over any item in your house. I don't care what it is. A book, a t-shirt, a computer. I mean, it was not made here.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, this mentality that we can blithely live our lives in America and, screw everybody else, I don't care, is going to come back and bite us, already does, and like fills our lives and other people's lives with a lot of pain and unseen consequences. So like refusing to acknowledge the rest of the world is just not an option to me.
No, it's not.
No.
Thank you, Erin. This was so informative and just amazing. So we really appreciate your honesty and your openness. And you have some really good thoughts about how you changed and how it might be possible for other people. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Always an honor to hang.
Thank you.
And you know what? Next time, Erin's going to resume her role as co-host and one of the interviewers. And next time, well, I'm not sure who we're going to talk to next time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we've got people lined up.
we do.
It's change is hard, y'all, and everybody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
And if anyone listening wants to let us know about their change, send us an email. Change is hard, y'all. YALL, no apostrophe, at gmail.com. I got it right.
Nice.
Yay. Okay, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
You're not going along.